I hope you've had a good session, first session in the workshops. We'll go to the facilitators then, and we'll start off with Councillor Milne.
Okay, thank
you.
You
was in full flow when we left.
I was, wasn't I? But so we looked at 3 questions, which were the most sustainable of those 5 options. Which urban areas would be would best suit sustainable growth within the plan period, and number 3, if we're doing a new settlement, which would be a reasonable option. So I distilled a sense from our speakers, from Councillors Harvey and Bartlett and Davis particularly, that sustainability is to be defined. Obviously, we all understand how we define it, making choices that do not compromise the ability of our successors to make similar choices. So we didn't talk about the circular economy and reuse and recycling or anything specifically, but we did have, all of us have in mind, I got a very strong sense that we all had in mind that whatever planning we did must be, for want of a better term, as low carbon as we can make it. So what options can be delivered without straining our existing infrastructure, be it transport, be it services, be it the availability of opportunities for, I don't know, skills and employment and so on, and what options may lend themselves best to delivery, where you can add on infrastructure in a sensible, sustainable, cost-effective way to deliver those housing needs. So in the main, although we recognise that there is a tension between demand and supplyability, between there is an inevitable underlying demand for more housing in the rural areas, that we accept, given what we've understood from officers about the difficulties of delivering affordable houses in the rural areas, that we need to focus on the urban ones in the market towns. So around option 3, which is that balanced approach between Hereford and the market towns. Going more specifically onto question 2 around which urban areas, well, the 2 that were favoured, which I certainly picked up from Councillor Davis, would be Ross and Leominster. Councillor Bartlett said that there is availability of land, for example, in Leominster, that is not being built out as we might expect, because there are other issues to do with the regeneration of the city, of the town centre, but I hope I'm representing my little community, our breakout community, correctly here. That we really felt that, going back to this business of a new settlement in the rural area, that was capable of delivering very high standards of both green infrastructure, affordability, call it a market town, almost, and possibly quite a substantial settlement. So 1,500 houses might really be a baseline for that. And where would it be? Well, we recognise that there are a number of existing potential rail-connected transport options at Trialus, Tarrington, Moreton-on-Lug, and Withington. So those would be four options. I personally favour Trialus, and I know that Councillor Ginman has been in touch with Professor Stainton and the Secretary of State and Jessie Norman and so on about that, but that's just my feeling. I think I've probably said enough. I haven't actually expanded on I was in full flow, but I was talking about something else when we were cut off. I was talking about reinventing our approach to planning, but it's a bit more philosophical, so say no more about that.
Thank you, Councillor Milne. I think you've summarised quite nicely the group's discussion on that. So can we have who's the next speaker? Facilitate which group? Councillor Swindlehurst,
Yeah,
you got your hand up.
I'm happy to go next. Yeah, so same questions. The idea of a new settlement was attractive because the reasons that Councillor Milne has outlined. It's the opportunity to do something amazing, extraordinary, a very high standard, and the difficulty of continuing to build out from existing infrastructure, which is creaky and not ideal. It's always compromised from before you even begin. So that was immediately was an attractive option. There is concern about whether or not, or at what point the market towns would reach saturation, and the constraints of some market towns in terms of their connectivity or how they relate to the rest of the county. The idea of a new settlement, it was felt very strongly that one of the criteria, which I think was mentioned in the presentation about it being connected with a train service, was something that was felt very strongly in terms of the sustainability of that suggestion. But other than that, I think there was a lot of support for it. Question 2, there was I kind of querying about the constraints due to the changes in the transport plan for Hereford, and whether or not that was something that needed to come forward before we can actually make a determination as to the suitability of Hereford for development. But if we just put that to one side, then the Hereford is clearly a very sustainable, suitable place for development because it's where everything is. So Hereford would be one, although the type of developments might alter from being large scale strategic to smaller multiple sites with a lower impact. There was a conversation quite interesting about the decline in household size, and so why we're needing more housing to meet a decline in household size, and an acknowledgement that housing is needed to keep market towns alive and thriving. Herefordshire is still as it were, a net importer of people, but they're not necessarily of working age. So that has to be taken into account. So overall, taking everything into account, there was a general feeling that Hereford and Leinster, Hereford because it has already, all the employment sites and the hospital, and Leinster because we felt it had more potential, more headroom than is being currently explored there. And then question number 3, again, going back to the idea of a new settlement, which I think we're all feeling reasonably cautiously positive about. Again, the rail link was emphasised. Got to have a rail link. We were asking, can we mix and match the options? So in the first set of options you had, so the mix and match option would be Hereford Leinster plus a new settlement, and the new settlement would have to have a very strong and well thought out design guide, but we like the idea of sort of multiple developers having input, and US Howard Pontrilas was mentioned and supported.
You're on mute, Kevin.
Schoolboy error, thank you. Who's and the final group, who's the speaker, please? Councillor Watson.
Yeah, surprise, Kevin. Yeah, hi everyone. Our group was talking about, we didn't favour option 1 because of the peppering as ad hoc, can be led by developers, but I think being proactive, if we identify areas, we can be a lot more proactive in that way. Option 2 and 3 really rely on other considerations like transport plan, healthcare service plans, and social care plans. And so, but like Alyssa and Jeremy's group, we were also quite interested in the new rural settlement, and again Pontrilas was noted because of if the train station goes ahead. I think many of the points have actually been covered. Housing mustn't be seen in isolation, and we do have to rely on the engagement and of our partners like Wye Valley Trust. So for that reason, we also looked at Leinster as a way of expanding, whereas in Ross, you know, the MIU's been closed, and I think that it's about, so I know that many of my ward members would say Ross has had enough development for the moment. It's got, you know, development expanding, but we're not getting the services like the transport links and et cetera, et cetera. So, so in terms of a new settlement, I think as Alyssa has already pointed out about the connectivity, but that's also like our GigaClear contract, you know, because those of us in the south were really badly affected by that lack of infrastructure. So this could be a really good opportunity. And again, as I said in our group, is that I hope that Peter Ginman and Jenny Hewitt and Carol Gandy and everyone is fully consulted down there. But it's about looking at the type of housing, the school, the connectivity to other areas in the county from the new settlement, looking at the military and the key workers, and also looking at agri-hoods, you know, really looking at putting communities and farming together rather than keeping them separate, and looking at the climate change agenda of having high spec housing, and yeah, with enabling self-resilience within those communities, you know, and I think that it's having those community centres, but I think that is, I think that's about it. So hopefully that makes sense. Did I leave anything out, guys? No, no. Okay, thanks. You're on mute, Kevin.
You're still on mute, Kevin.
Sorry about that. I've been coughing, so I didn't want to pass that across the airwaves. So if we go to Sam then. Sam, introduce us into the rural options settlement hierarchy.
Yeah, thank you, Kevin. So we'll go back into the breakout rooms now, and we'll look at 3 more questions, specifically on the rural area options. So which of the rural area options that Carla outlined earlier do you feel is the most sustainable one? We'll have a look at some of the advantages and disadvantages of the current settlement hierarchy in the core strategy, and then to have a think about some of the services and facilities that you think are important to make a village to be highlighted within the future settlement hierarchy. So I will just pop you in now.